Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Lansing Charter Commission to order. It's for our March 25th, 2025 meeting. Sir Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Adam Simon.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Dowd. Commissioner Jeffries.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Cowee. Here. Commissioner Washington. There are 8 members present, a quorum. Commissioner Dowd is absent.
I did receive a call from Commissioner Dowd. He is running a bit late tonight, so he will be joining us probably within the next half hour. Motion be in order to adopt the agenda. It's been moved and supported. Are there any changes, corrections? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes or is adopted. Now a motion be in order to approve our March 18th, 2025 minutes. It's been moved and supported. Are there any changes, corrections, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The minutes are approved. Now is the time for public comment at this time. So do we have...
Okay. Our only speaker is Linda Keefe.
Does this go somewhere? Okay. Hi. Sorry, Linda Keefe here. Oh, and first of all, I want to thank the commission for researching the viability of having quarterly meetings. The general manager of BWL with customers. I think that's going to be really important, and I appreciate that. The issue of inaccurate smart meters, as well as some people are a little more sensitive to those meters and some suffer health effects. I think that that'll also need to be resolved. I do believe that an audit of BWL electric and water bills. I've kind of focused on electric, but certain people have had trouble with water bills as well. So I think that an audit of those would be in order, just to show how many are actually having, $300, $400, $600 bills. Even the woman that came before this body a few weeks ago, hers were $9,600 for the entire year. And also, I think I just perused, someone had done some research on the peak hours, and ours are pretty, a lot of other utilities are between 3 and 7 p.m., which seems more reasonable than 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day, particularly, maybe seniors and other people that have to be, they're not out and about, they're in their homes during the day, so it raises their rates. And I do want to say I do support the Sustainability and Environmental Affairs Department. I think that's really important that our city has that. Several other cities in the state already have that, and it's really important. And for once, I have time left on the clock. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That was our final speaker.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Now is the time for officers' reports under the chair. Just a quick update on what we're going to be doing next Tuesday at our meeting. We do have the council auditor, Charles Randall, I believe. Randall, I'm sorry, is coming in to meet with us and talk about some of the issues that we heard with Councilmember Spatafor. And we will also be taking up at that point the amendments that get sent to us under our attorney's opinion regarding the Board of Water and Light. Tonight, I had received notice that there needs to have the city attorney review the issue of the return on equity, just in light of what happened with the city of East Lansing. That review has not taken place, and also the Board of Commissioners have their meeting tonight, so they would be unavailable to be here. So I indicated to them that we put that off until next Tuesday. So that will be coming up. Did have a letter from Ms. Arand, I believe, or Arndt, and she has a series of questions that she has directed toward the Border Water and Light, and I know that that Commissioner Boyd has sent a copy of that communication to the Border Water and Light, and they're going to provide a written response to us by the end of this week, and so that will also be available for review next Tuesday at our meeting. So with that, that's my report. Madam Vice Chair, to you. Oh.
So are we scratching line by line for?
No, we'll still, in terms of that, in terms of our review tonight, we still will be reviewing Article 5, but we will not review the section dealing with the Board of Water and Light. Okay. Madam Vice Chair.
No report.
Mr. Clerk.
Just to note, of course, there are written communications in the packet, and the budget to date spent is $189,700 roughly, and remaining is $310,300.
Thank you, Clerk Swope. Now is the time on our agenda for presentations. We have with us tonight Lori Welsh and Jeremiah Kilgore from the Public Service Department. If you folks would like to come down, have a seat at the table. As you know, we've been talking a little bit about public service, particularly as it relates to sustainability and the efforts that they're involved in and what that may mean to our charter or any potential revisions. So we asked these folks to come down and talk to us about that. I guess we'd just start out if you want to give a quick overview of what you all are up to in that area, and then I think there will be questions that we will have that we'd like to ask. Yeah, just pull it a little closer to you.
It is now. That's better. Thank you. So Lori Welch, Sustainability Manager, and currently housed in the Public Service Department. And I know there's been some discussions about the potential for creating a sustainability department. And I believe that there's a couple different reasons for that. One of them being kind of for sustainability to be widely recognized and kind of be more prominent at the city. And there may be other reasons other than that, but I agree with those reasons. I do have some concerns. I kind of see there's pros and cons to this. And my immediate concerns would be currently being housed in the Public Service Department. I enjoy a variety of services provided, admin support, for instance, communication, staff support, and those things. And without a funding source for a department, I would be concerned that I would lose some of those existing resources. I'm kind of, I would be interested to have a conversation with stakeholders about the potential to maybe create a division or maybe find a way for sustainability to be more prominent and still kind of have the existing resources that we currently enjoy. And I'll stop there, and maybe, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, Jeremiah Kilgore with Public Service. Yeah, I think Lori hit the main points there is where they're housed right now in public service. There's a lot of support, be it the communications, the administration staff to help with grants and what have you. But it's also a part of a team that really funnels with the sustainability. So we have fleet services, we have property management, we have engineering, wastewater. So it's a good fit, but again, it's getting that face out there more prominent.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner White.
I have a lot of questions. One, what does this sustainability office do? Two, I think we can talk about climate change, sustainability, and everything else forever, but unless we make it a regional discussion, it's worthless. We all share the same water, the same air, if we just take our little pocket. But I don't even know what your office does. What is your vision? What are you looking for? What is your intended outcome? these things are important to me as we have this discussion about sustainability. I mean, that can mean anything.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess if I would have anticipated questions, I would have had a more formal presentation, and I would be happy to provide that at some point in the future if you'd like to. But in a nutshell, the Sustainability Office is responsible for implementing the city's climate action and sustainability goals. We have an adopted sustainability action plan right now for the entire city, and that covers issues such as energy efficiency and clean energy, renewable energy, clean transportation, land use, materials management. It's pretty comprehensive. And we have emission reduction goals that we're working toward meeting. We also have a municipal climate action plan just for city operations, which we're also responsible for implementing. So it is pretty comprehensive and it covers a number of different issues. I know you mentioned regionally, so I'll just mention this quickly, but I do work very cooperatively with surrounding jurisdictions, East Lansing, Ingham County, and others. So we do, to some extent, work regionally when we can.
Thank you for that. Can I find this document somewhere? I mean, I get your goals, but I want to know the strategy. When do you expect it to be completed? This is a really important topic to me, and it should be for everybody. I mean, I went so far as to do my house in solar, okay? So, and I will stress, it's got to be regional. It can't just be us. And because what they dump in the water, we get. What they put in the air, we get. We're taking down trees. We have to think about that. We have to, particularly in lower economic areas, they depend on the cooling and from the trees and nature, and they tend to have the least of it. So if there is somewhere where I can get that document that really puts out what are your goals, what is your strategy, when do you expect to have these things accomplished, I would really appreciate that. I mean, is anybody else interested in having a full, robust idea of what this sustainability office is all about?
I will just respond and say that the Sustainability Office has a website. It's under Mayoral Initiatives, and it has the Sustainability Plan, the Climate Action Plan, and a number of other supporting documents and our goals on there. So I'd encourage you to check that out. But I would be happy to come and do a presentation if that's helpful too.
I would appreciate it, but it would be at the will of this body, not me.
Commissioner Bauer.
In the area, we have like tri-county regional planning and different quasi-governmental agencies. Is there anything regionally like that dealing with the sustainability issue, where, as Commissioner Washington said, where different governmental units would get together?
Yeah, great question. And I think all of us sustainability managers from local jurisdictions would agree. We did create kind of an informal, it's called Capital Area Sustainability Partnerships of local stakeholders, local jurisdictions. It kind of wasn't fully supported because we all have full-time jobs, so with little capacity to really try and get something like that off the ground, it was very challenging. So we've kind of pivoted recently, and we're trying to partner with existing groups that have an emphasis in the greater Lansing or mid-Michigan area, so they can bring in some additional resources. So we are currently trying to find a way to formalize regional work together.
Commissioner Boyd.
First of all, thank you very much for coming down. You have a lot of fans. We've gotten a lot of letters from people, and people have come to the podium and spoke on your behalf and argued in favor of a Department of Sustainability. And I don't want to characterize all of what they've said, but some of what they've said is that it would give sustainability more prominence in what we're doing. I'm hearing exactly the opposite from you folks who are on the front line. I'm hearing you say that your Office of Sustainability works. You've got a lot of resources, you're working as a team. So my question to you is, do you want to be a department, or are you happy to be an office? Thank you.
And this is directed at me personally, I'm guessing.
Because Lori, you were the CART person before you were the...
Right.
And now you are in charge of CART and sustainability, right? So you come very highly recommended.
Thank you. Ultimately, I think that is an excellent goal. I am more concerned about the resources that are needed to run a successful department and trying to find a funding mechanism, sustainable funding mechanism that can help fill gaps if I were to become a department in and of itself, separate from public service. So I think, again, those are my biggest concerns. I think there are some ways to maybe bridge the gap between now and then by way of maybe looking very, very creatively to find funding sources. I've been successful at securing grants and so forth, but those are very project-based, and I need some just general support, just general ongoing funding. And so I think those are my major concerns.
Just one follow-up. So you work in city government now, you have experience in city government, and I'm hearing you say, and tell me if I'm wrong, that based on your experience, you question whether or not you would have the resources available that you need if you were a department in and of yourself.
That's correct, yes. I mean, simply thinking about the level of admin support, for instance, everything from paying bills and doing payroll to helping, provide grant reporting and things like that. And communications, we rely on departmental communications staff pretty heavily. So without some built-in way to fund those types of positions in a new department, that would be my primary concern.
Just brought up a question. It brought another question. We were saying that with the current funds that you receive as the service works and the grants, what are some of the current sustainability projects that you guys have been able to complete, or ones that you still have on the horizon that you're working on currently?
Oh my goodness, do you have all night? There's a lot, but a couple of big ones right now, and they're tied to grant funds that we received. We have a urban forestry grant, and that is going to create educational pathways. We're partnering with the Lansing School District and MSU to create new internship opportunities at both the city and the BWL. And we are doing some workforce initiative types of things. We are going to be doing contracted tree planting and maintenance of those trees, since our existing forestry staff can't often do that on an ongoing basis. We're doing a lot of public engagement and education and outreach. And that grant is just kicking off now. It's a 5-year project. We also are administering an electric vehicle charging and fueling infrastructure grant, which is just getting started as well. That's another 5-year project, and that is regional in nature. So the city of Lansing is the recipient, but there's a number of local jurisdictions that are partnering with us on that. There's things internally like creating a sustainable purchasing policy that really impacts every department at the city. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, because there's a million projects. Jump in if you want, Jeremiah.
You had the JCI project.
Yeah, and so when our office was created, we began tracking energy use and utility and water and energy use by the city. And we have started to do energy efficiency projects and under the contract with Johnson Controls, but also I have a staff member who's the lead on benchmarking, so tracking all of the energy use from every building around the city and our water use, so that we can better manage that and suggest ways to reduce consumption and so forth. So that's a big function of our office as well.
Thank you. So, given the state of federal government and assistance to programs like this, is that one of your fears as well, that you will not get the support from federal funds that you might have applied for, and for long term as well?
Certainly right now, things aren't looking great. We were pretty excited with the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, and we did receive those grants that I just mentioned were IRA grants. They're both right now at this time safe, but at risk, and we acknowledge that. So I am concerned about federal funding for this type of thing. We are starting to look at other private foundations, state funds, and other sources of funding, though. So trying to not just fully depend on federal grants.
What is the size of your office? How
The
many
size.
staff?
It's myself and one other FTE, the sustainability specialist, and I have one full-time contract employee and one part-time intern.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boyd.
Just to sort of build on what Commissioner Lopez was asking, of the grants that you get now, what percentage of them are federal grants? Because we have to assume they're going away.
They're just those two that I mentioned. Those
And
are
how
the
much
only-
money are that?
It is $5 million for the urban forestry project and an $8 million for the EV charging and
So
infrastructure
$13 million.
grant. Yeah.
And do you get grants from any place else? That's it?
We do have state grants, and right now we have, I think, 2 that we're finishing up from their EGLE grants, Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy.
And do you know the source of their funding?
Those are
I mean, the state may administer them, but is it state money or is it federal money?
the ones that I currently have are state money, but there are new ones coming through the state that I believe are federal, but what they're trying to do is pull down the funds so that they are as safe as possible. So
Thank you.
that's my understanding.
Other questions? Commissioner Washington.
I'm sorry, Lori. If I come across like I'm attacking, please know that I'm not. For what I think we need in the future, I do not think your office is big enough. However, I also don't think it needs to be a department. I think it should be a bureau or a division as part of a bigger department. Your office is much too small for what needs to be done. We should be checking water quality in our rivers. We should be checking air quality in our cities. We should be doing an extensive study on where we have trees, where we need to replace trees. We need to replace these rain gardens on Michigan Avenue that were never done correctly. They have never served the purpose because they didn't even put the right plants in them. We need to talk about the ecosystem in our parks and the invasive species that are taking up our ecosystem that is so critically important. So I don't think your office is anywhere near as big as it should be, and I don't think you're even beginning to touch what we need to touch, and it's not your fault. And from what I understand from these grants, were these one-time grants from the American Relief? So we're not
Correct,
talking
yeah.
about Trump in 4 years. These were one-time grants. Okay, because I think funding may be difficult in the next 3.5 years, but let's remember it's 3.5 years. It's not for all eternity. But I think you guys really, in my opinion, you all need to really start strategizing on what you need, what you think is important to be done in your office, because like I said, we haven't even discussed water quality, air quality, ecosystems, invasive species, all these things that are so important to our climate and to our very breath we breathe and the water we drink. So I think it would be really important that you do that and pretend it's a great big Christmas list. This is what we'd like to do. You know, emissions, okay, we all know we should have half the bus sizes we have and they should be electric. To have these gas guzzling buses with nobody in them is ridiculous. I mean, we can get down to that, but I probably would not support a department, but I certainly would support a bureau within a department. But yeah, you just don't have enough people, and you don't have the capacity to do what you really need to do, in my opinion.
Can I respond quickly? I totally agree. We definitely don't have enough people. We have put in request in the budget for additional staff. And I try and utilize every little penny that I have as best I can. There are a number of goals outlined in that sustainability action plan, and we are working to prioritize those goals and implement them as we have capacity and funding opportunity to do so. But you're absolutely right. There's a number of goals that we just cannot get to. So, yeah.
Other questions? Commissioner Bauer.
I'm looking at Grand Rapids, and they have an Office of Sustainability with a number of targets, vehicle miles traveled with electric vehicles, electricity, grid decarbonization, by dates. Do we have a list of targets or goals for our city?
It may look a little bit different, but that sustainability action plan is probably the closest thing to it. So it has kind of 6 different chapters, as I said, kind of relating to energy and land use in different sectors. And within each chapter, kind of broken down broader goals. And then my job is to kind of take those goals and break them down further into, work projects and tasks for my staff. But again, we only get stretched so far across all of those goals in that plan. So I do, in the next year or two, think that it is probably a good idea to redo that sustainability action plan, update it. We are in the process of updating our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. We have new data. We have a number of projects that we've implemented. So probably within the next year or so, I would lobby for an updated plan that maybe would get us to some more targets and goals like that you mentioned.
Other questions? Commissioner Lopez.
Not a question really, but as I'm listening to what they're saying and my questions addressed, we're talking about, what are they doing today? I think the question for us, we believe that there's this, with the office, department, or whatever, we need to make that decision for the future. So, I mean, the council, they're in charge
We can't.
to implement. Oh, I'm sorry. I forget all this whole time. Should I start all over? Well, anyway, what I was saying is that hearing what they're saying and our questions we're talking about today, I think this charter is talking about tomorrow and going forward. So if it's the will of this commission to recommend or to insert a Department of Sustainability, that we do it, and it'd be up to the city council and mayor to work with it. I mean, they can do it by ordinance, they can do it however they want, but it would be in the charter. So it would be the will of those elected officials to either have it or not have it. So, I mean, I think we're looking at the future, and it's not easy, but if that's what we're supporting, or we may support in the charter, that's what we should do.
Commissioner Anderson.
I'm just going to put out a suggestion. I like to do this sometimes. But I think it's possible, too, that we can put things in the charter and say that this needs to happen within a certain amount of time. So we could say there needs to be a sustainability department within 5 years or something like that, like a specific date. And that allows the administration to have something to work towards while still mandating it. So just putting that out there.
Commissioner Washington.
Thank you, and I will respectfully disagree. I think a department is something that has many things underneath it, which is why I was thinking of the future when I said bureau, which is more than a section or a division, but you can have a bureau under a department, and then they can have shared services, because public service also does recycling, and they do other things with the equipment for the roads, and so I think it would fit nicely within that department, but it should have a much higher status with more importance, which is why I suggested a bureau.
Well, if I may,
Commissioner
when I say
Lopez.
department, it could be a bureau, it could be, but that it's in the charter. A sustainability effort, whether it's department, bureau, or whatever, but it would be then up to the mayor and city council to decide that. The question is that we would place it in the charter for the future.
Any other comments? I have a couple of questions for you. How much general fund money do you get from the city?
Help me out, Jeremiah. So I have, I think, 30,000 for temporary help, 40,000 in miscellaneous funds, and
35 for contractual.
35 in contractual. Yeah.
Okay, so the FTE, is that covered by a grant then, or?
Oh, no, sorry about that.
Yeah, so that does not include the FTEs, the 2 FTEs. This is in addition to those.
So what would be the total then, including the FTEs? Just a ballpark.
Including the FTEs, maybe 500,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I've been asking in terms of trying to figure out what costs might be. I hear that department heads, when you consider the salary, the benefits, it's up around 200,000. Is that a fair estimate? Do you know?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Just curious, have you folks been involved in anything with the new city hall? Any of the construction that's going on there, looking at, sustainability issues in terms of the build out?
Yeah, I have tried to bend the ear of anybody who will listen. I've had a couple of conversations with the construction manager and have sent quite a bit of information to the team to try and look at those types of issues. There's a possibility that we could have an interesting demonstration project, a sustainable material called mass timber, and that is a part of our forestry grant to put in a public building, and I think it would be excellent if that could be at City Hall, so that might be one feature. We've also talked with the team doing the new public safety complex and encouraging them to pursue geothermal and clean energy there. So we are trying to, then again, there's very limited capacity on those types of things. We try and get the ear of folks on those issues as much as possible.
Okay. Back to the issue, have either you or anyone in the administration or even city council, has anyone been approached about creating or moving this up into a department of the city? I mean, does the mayor know that there's this discussion going on, and does he have an opinion? Has there been any discussion with the mayor's office on this that you know of?
I believe Andy Kilpatrick talked to the mayor's office, but I don't know what was involved with that.
Okay.
Or the opinion of.
How about with city council? Have you had any discussions with those folks?
I have not.
Okay. I went through the minutes of the Advisory Commission on Sustainability to see what they're up to. It's very fascinating. I think you've got a really good board there.
Yeah.
You're involved in a lot of things. Your website, you've got a lot of good material there, and I'm really surprised you're doing as much as you're doing with what you have in terms of resources. But it was interesting to follow their discussion about, does this Advisory Commission feel it should become a department of the city or even a board? And there was discussions about, do we approach the Charter Commission about that issue? And I believe it was in their November meeting that there was a consensus that was met that, no, we don't want to do that. And, now we're getting this coming to us, and, it doesn't appear a lot of interest of doing that on the part of the administration. I don't know about council, but certainly from those board members, for a variety of reasons. I mean, they talked a little bit about it, of why. But to me, the dots are not connecting for me on that. So in any event, I mean, those are just some of the comments and observations that I have. And I do believe that it should be, I have no objections, and I'd like to figure out how we can raise the visibility of that, maybe make it an office of sustainability within the Public Service Department, and I don't believe we have to do anything by charter to do that. I mean, that could simply be done by an ordinance with City Council and the mayor's approval. But I go back to looking at what you all are doing. I think it should be raised, that visibility. And I like the issue the point that Commissioner Washington brought up in terms of the regional aspect of it. And I understand, the difficulty because of lack of resources in being able to do that. But I think that's something that we should look at as well. So those are just my comments. Anyone else? Okay. I want to thank you for taking the time tonight to come down and talk to us. It's been very helpful.
Can I add just one
Sure.
more comment while I have you all here? I think the only thing that we kind of discussed that hasn't come up is that finding a funding source for whether it's a bureau or a department or what have you. A number of options have come up, whether we can identify a small percentage of the general fund to fund sustainability, or a percentage of the energy savings that we're getting from doing some of the building upgrades or something like that. And I don't know if that's under your purview, but I'll just leave that for consideration because I think that's the kind of funding source that we'll need to get where we want to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming down.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're to old business under Article 4, line-by-line review. We do have a letter that was dated March 14th from our council that was going over some of the issues in Article 4. So why don't we begin going through that piece and taking up the issues that were raised in there, and then we'll circle back and hopefully get done with Article 4 tonight. So, Kristen, can you?
It's on page 36.
So yeah, on page 36 is a memo that goes over some of the outstanding things for discussion within Article 4. The first item are references to affirmative action. And we provided two options for you. One is to simply strike the language out of there. The other is to develop language that would be legally defensible and consistent with the ban within the Michigan Constitution on affirmative action. Part of the discussion is in here dealt with some recent litigation with the federal government in terms of what it is doing with DEI. This is an ongoing issue and continues to develop. Even the sort of status of what that litigation is stated in this letter is outdated because there was a nationwide ban on executive orders pertaining to DEI, which has since been stayed, so the government can continue to enforce those orders while they're being litigated, and that's the current status of it as of right now, according to my legal update research on my phone, which goes to say we don't know what's going on with this right now, and this is an ongoing issue that continues to develop by the week, certainly. So again, certainly the most the way that I would call risk averse, and not in a bad way, but just in terms of avoiding any potential fallout from what could be happening with the federal government, is simply to strike the language. However, we do believe that there can be some legally defensible language put in here so long as it complies with Michigan Constitution and federal law that prohibits discrimination based on suspect classifications. That being said, Enforcement remains to be seen how that's going to be enacted. So I can't give you any more detail than that. It's really how important of an issue is stating things like diversity or similar type phrases to the citizens of Lansing in your charter. If it's important, we think we can develop some language, but there may be fallout that we just don't know at this point. And that could potentially impact grants and federal contracts. We just don't know at this point. Again, a way to avoid that is to remove it altogether, but this is up to you to discuss how you want to continue to work on this language.
Commissioner Kui.
I'm looking at the language that you proposed about the pursuit of openness and diversity in hiring promotion. But again, to me, that just seems like one small factor where the affirmative actions carry a vast broader amount of what that states. So with the ongoing litigation federal-wise, wouldn't you say it'd be better if we just maybe not do anything till we have that fallout completed, if it's going to be complete?
I think it depends on how you guys have a certain amount of time in which you have to complete your work. We don't know how long that litigation is going to take, and I'm just talking about one. There's actually 3 litigations. The one that's the furthest along is in the Fourth Circuit with Baltimore, and then it was up on the Fourth Circuit. But there are other litigations in Illinois and California that are all sort of challenging the same thing. This could be going on for years. So, I mean, like I said, if you want to avoid the issue and any potential fallout to the city from a risk management perspective, you can strike the language out of this. But again, if it's something where it's like, no, this is a policy statement we want to make in terms of openness, again, that's yours to make. Just understand some people may not like that.
My thing is, if you strike the language out, and we do have a case where someone feels they were discriminated or didn't get a job, what would be the other resource for them to recourse to challenge that if we strip it out? Then once you take something out, you're never going to get it back in there.
Well, there's a whole host of federal and state laws that are still in place to deal with discrimination. So the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, you've got Title VII.
Title VII.
In federal court, there's a variety of, the Constitution, the 14th Amendment. So there's a variety of avenues by which to vindicate your rights if you're being discriminated against.
Okay. Commissioner Washington.
I just wanted to add too, we have our own human rights ordinance, and we have a process in our city that if you're discriminated here, and I know because I worked on it, it is laid out exactly how you file a complaint and where you go, and we do have a pretty robust human rights ordinance. So I think we're well protected in that area, and as far, there was a time we worked really hard to clean it up. Kathy, Councilwoman Dunbar, she did a good job with the initial one, and Councilwoman Wood and I, we tweaked it and brought it up to where it should be to be more inclusive. So my question was regarding this is I saw, and I wish I didn't bring my computer because I highlighted it, but in some obscure area here, it says the mayor is responsible for upholding the affirmative action ordinance, and it wasn't even in this place. He's responsible to hold up all ordinances. I didn't understand why that was specifically named.
Commissioner Boyd.
If I'm hearing Commissioner Cui correctly, you're suggesting that perhaps we should just do away with this annual report until we know more. Is that what I was?
No.
Is that what I was hearing you say? Just the
That would
opposite.
continue status quo.
Even with the affirmative action, which is no longer.
Yeah, well, whatever initiative we're going to bring it, again, to the 21st century. But I still want us to recognize it in the charter. Again, if it's not, I'm sorry. If it's not, again, we're not using affirmative action, we're not using DEI initiatives or what have you. I still want a complete body of that still in the charter so that it's recognized.
So what would you recommend that it say, that the mayor shall make an annual report on the status of what?
Status of initiatives.
There we go.
And programs of the city. And just to point out to you, I'm sorry, I took
Go ahead.
liberty in that, but this proposed language is not dealing with discrimination. This is talking about a report detailing the demographics of the city officers, employees, including in promotion and hiring. So that's really something that we should be looking at in the city, how we're doing promotions, what are we doing, what does your cabinet look like? That's what this language is dealing with. So I don't see anything wrong with leaving this as it's written, but you're saying the mayor should make an annual report on the status of initiatives and programs of the city that promote opportunity. If you don't want to use diversity, inclusion, or empowerment for all citizens, for all employees, I should say, and the report shall include what it says, permitted by law information concerning demographics.
Thank you for the clarification.
That's my interpretation.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yeah, just to affirmative action reports. We stopped doing that, and I say we because it was Human Relations that did them for the mayor. We stopped doing that maybe in the Hollister years, I think, somewhere around. So this thing hasn't happened in a long time. So it's really obsolete. And, yeah, we just,
So is there a motion, Commissioner Dowd?
I'll make a motion to adopt the language as presented.
You're talking about .11?
.11.
The proposed language?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate or discussion on that language, Commissioner Bauer?
No, I guess just clarify, your motion is that we, under point 11, that we keep the language as recommended.
Yeah, it would strike out the affirmative action programs and then replace it with initiatives and programs in the city. Just, yeah, right as it's presented there.
And
Laura is recommending the diversity and inclusion be taken out.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry.
such,
One at a time.
Okay.
Did that answer your question or not?
Yeah,
Yep, right now, it
But-
just says
So
that,
the move is that we include this entire section as recommended by the attorney.
Yes.
Yes.
And I support that.
Commissioner Boyd?
If I understood Commissioner Lori Adams Simon correctly, we would also take out the words diversity and inclusion. So it would read, the mayor shall make an annual report on the status of initiatives and programs of the city that promote opportunity, period.
opportunity for all employees.
That'd be fine.
All right, just a second before,
I'll accept that amendment.
I mean,
okay,
do you-
just a second. So what we've got is a motion. Now you want to amend that motion to strike diversity, comma, and inclusion, and insert, and take out the comma, and insert for all employees, period. Is that correct? That's the
I'm fine with
motion? It's been moved. Is there support for that?
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Any other discussion on the amendment? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, passes.
And may I have a
No.
question for our attorney? So that would obviously remove any conflict.
I hope so. Again, we don't know, but certainly I think removal of the phrase diversity and inclusion makes it easier for people who are filing for grants when asked the question to certify, do you have any DEI programs? At least this provision, if adopted, and that's still sort of in place if and when this charter revision is enacted, this would not be an impediment to them saying, no, we don't have a diversity inclusion initiative, as, we think is interpreted by the federal government right now. So,
Okay, on the motion.
clear as mud.
Yeah. On the motion as amended, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Commissioner Bauer.
I just have to make a statement. I mean, it's sort of with a gut ache that I do this because, and this just more refers to an annual report, which is why I'm more comfortable doing it. But I do think that the people of our city, in general, majority of them, do believe, your question, is it important to them? And I think it is important to our citizens that we are still a city that values diversity and inclusion. So again, I can, because it's more in reference to a report, and my colleagues seem to think it would, I can go along with it, but I just want, it's bothering me a lot to be making decisions based on things happening in Washington. That's all I'll say.
And I'd just like to go on record and say it really bothers me, just that we even have to, we're here, so. But as far as this report, I would not suggest removing things from, when we go along.
We'll
this.
get to
Yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, it's destroying me.
Commissioner Lopez.
Just a question. So we passed this and everything. Now, council in 2 years or so, or 3 or 4, couldn't enhance this, right? By ordinance?
Yeah?
So I think we're just talking about now. Later, the council can make adjustments to this document. To, thinking of what you were saying.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? All right, moving on. 4.401.
The other reference to affirmative action within Article 4 is Section 401.4, heads of departments. It does state that the head of each department currently shall implement policies including affirmative action as expressed in the ordinances and resolutions of the council. Again, you have two options. Because affirmative action has been prohibited under the Michigan Constitution for about 20 years, you can just strike that language and have that be it. The alternative is, again, if you want to revise that to include language that fosters diversity or openness in a way that would not violate the Michigan Constitution and I believe is defensible against any claim regarding current DEI executive orders. We did provide some proposed language that would change affirmative action to pursuit of openness and diversity in hiring and promotion within the department in accordance with law. Again, to state that to the extent it is allowed under state and federal law that that's the goal of that statement there.
Commissioner Boyd.
I support point 4, the first option, where we would eliminate the reference to affirmative action, but we would not expand it at all. I mean, I think this is a charter document. It's meant to be broad. It's meant to provide a goal or an outline for the city council and for the city to follow. And I think the less specific we are, the better, especially in these times, which I agree with Commissioner Bauer and Commissioner Adam Simon. What we're seeing in Washington is not something many of us like, but it is the reality we live in. And I read an article the other day that said no matter who gets elected in 28, you're not going to be able to undo everything that's being done. So I suggest we go with the first option. Thank you.
Is that a motion? Yes. It's been moved.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. Commissioner Cui has other thoughts.
Yes, mine was actually to go for option 2, and actually supporting the same that you said, regardless of what happens upper in federal administration. If we go with option 2 for our state charter, that to me enshrines that language to stay in there, and also how we want to move forward.
Commissioner Lopez? Commissioner Lopez, did you?
I'm sorry.
I thought you had your hand up.
Oh.
No? Okay. No? Commissioner Dowd?
So I agree with both opinions. I think one thing that would keep this language consistent, however, is in the second option, if we just put pursuit of opportunity in hiring and promotion within the department, that mirrors the exact language we just approved.
Exactly.
And then it keeps those two things consistent. What I like about this also is it does state, as expressed in the ordinances and resolutions of City Council, we have a human rights ordinance already. So this is keeping us in line with the things that the city already has in place. It's allowing the charter just to say, follow the local laws.
Madam Vice Chair.
I concur with Commissioner Boyd, Dowd on this, because I don't want to remove this. And as we know, the city council can always, amend this, the charter, so. I would personally like to leave that in there, but I'm not opposed to the openness in hiring and promotion within.
Commissioner Boyd.
I think Commissioner Dowd has made a nice alternative in using the word opportunity as opposed to openness and diversity. So I would forego my recommendation and my motion to support what he has proposed. Thank you.
Okay, who supported that? I think that was Commissioner Lopez. Did you give up? Okay. So we're back to square one. Commissioner Washington.
And before I'm willing to vote on it, I would like to know word for word what it's going
Okay,
to say.
Commissioner Dowd.
So, in the changed language, it would be the second option on number 4. So we'll go to the bottom. It says, including pursuit of opportunity. So we would get rid of openness and diversity, which would mirror the earlier language. Opportunity and hiring promotion within the department in accordance with law as expressed. So simply just removing openness and diversity and replacing with opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I suggest, say, opportunity and fairness in hiring? Yeah.
So,
Fairness?
all right. just-
I liked what Commissioner Dowd had recommended originally because it was consistent with what we just approved. We didn't put fairness in the report. We said opportunity. So that is why I supported what Commissioner Dowd suggested. So I would offer that up, Commissioner.
Okay. Let's just get it straight here. So at this point,
I'm not gonna-
Commissioner Dowd has put out a motion to approve the language, including opportunity in hiring and promotion within the department in accordance with law. That has been moved. Is there support for that? Yes. It's been moved and supported. And so in further discussion, is there a motion to amend that to include and fairness?
Yes.
Well, someone make a motion, please. Okay, it's been moved and supported that, and fairness, so it'll read opportunity and fairness in hiring and promotion within the department in accordance with law. Commissioner Washington, on the amendment.
I'm not in favor of the unfairness, so are we going to vote
We will
on
vote
that
on.
before?
Yes,
Okay.
that will be the first vote. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment to add and fairness, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. I don't think it passed.
I don't think so either.
Well, why don't we do a roll call? Please call.
Okay, on the amendment, Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd,
No.
Commissioner Dowd. Commissioner Jeffries,
No.
Commissioner Lopez,
No.
Commissioner Kawhi,
Yes.
Commissioner Washington,
No.
Commissioner Adams Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
No.
3 yeas, 6 nays.
Okay, it fails. We're back to just opportunity, or to the original motion that included opportunity. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Go ahead.
The next item discussed in the letter is simply just, I think, answering a question on 401.5, which references department heads being appointed for an indefinite term, and what does that mean? Indefinite term would be the opposite of someone appointed to a fixed term. Individuals appointed to a fixed term in the charter would be board members and people elected in an elected office. They are sitting in those positions for a fixed term stated either in the charter or law. Indefinite term is essentially at the pleasure of the mayor. We would recommend you leave indefinite term in place when referencing the department heads, because that means that the removal section for persons holding an office for a fixed term does not apply. If you remember, there's a whole removal provision to remove someone for cause, a board member, things like that. If you remove the reference to department heads as being an indefinite term, or there's lack of clarity there, an argument could be made, well then, you have to follow this more sort of strict provision for getting rid of me as a department head. So we recommend leaving that in place.
Any discussion, any questions regarding that? Hearing none, we'll move on.
The next section 3 kind of gives a little bit of a historical review of the appointment and termination of the fire chief and the police chief. As this board discussed, the provisions are different between how the fire chief is appointed and removed versus how the police chief is appointed and removed. It didn't always used to be that way. It used to be only one board of police and fire, and then that board oversaw, hired, and fired both the police and the fire chief. Those boards that one board was split into two in 1955, but that charter in that iteration still maintained the same sort of process for hiring and firing the police chief. That changed in 1967, or actually between 1967 and 1978, the current charter. I have not been able to track down exactly why the change was put in place in terms of how there's a slight difference between the fire chief appointment and the police chief appointment. But it does appear based on the historical review that the reason why the police board and the fire board are involved in the hiring and firing is because they used to do all of them. That used to be entirely within their purview. So I think that's sort of a vestige of what that board used to have. Now, it's certainly within your, it can be changed. There's a lot of leeway and ability for the commission to alter this howsoever you choose. And so you could keep it as is. You could have the appointment and removal of these chiefs mirror each other with their respective boards. There's really no reason why. I mean, there's no stated reason in here other than whatever historical reason was back then. If that has changed now, and you think now it makes sense to do it a different way, that's certainly within your ability to make that change. And if you do want to make that change, I guess just let me know which way you want to go in terms of what's the better process. You don't even have to have the board involved in the hiring and firing if that's something you think is unnecessary or whatever. But again, this is all something that is within your ability to decide what makes the most sense for the city.
Any comments? Commissioner Dowd.
I think it makes sense to mirror them. In all reality, there's not a lot of good reason. It's very vague. I would recommend, if so, that we go along with the fire chief process, because what that allows for is an appointed by the mayor from candidates recommended by the commissioners, whereas currently the police chief appoints somebody in consultation with the board of police commissioners.
Commissioner Anderson.
So I actually was leaning towards the police
Convince me.
because the police commissioners have to confirm the mayor's decision with a majority vote. And so I like that aspect, but again, I don't think that there's not too much different either way. It's just like very minor adjustments, but I prefer the police commissioners' responsibility in the process more.
Other comments? Commissioner Washington.
I don't see why we can't marry the two, and because I like the fire chief, police chief shall be appointed by the mayor from candidates recommended by the Board of Commissioners, and we know that they are all screened through HR before it ever gets to the police or fire commission. But I do also like that the final decision be approved by majority vote. So I don't see why we can't marry the two and have it for both, because I do think that's important. But I do also think because first responders are so critically important to our constituency that the Board of Fire Commissioners and Board of Police Commissioners should be involved. So I would recommend we marry the two, and the recommendation from the commissioners and then confirming by a majority vote.
Commissioner Boyd.
I like the idea of having them be identical as well, marrying them if you like that term. But I guess I have a question about, and I'm fine with the mayor appointing the police or the fire chief from a list of people that have been recommended by the fire or the police board. But I'm not quite certain why we would give volunteers, essentially volunteers, the right to nix a decision by the mayor. I don't understand that. I don't understand why we would do that. And I'd be curious to know what other cities do. You know, in other cities, does the board of police or fire have the right to say, oh, no, you can't fire this police chief, we like him or her too much? I don't understand that. Thank you.
Other comments? Commissioner Anderson.
I think because these specific positions are public servants, I think that it's important to have a diverse perspective when making the hiring decision. And the commissioners represent our community, our city. And I think, in my opinion, that's why it's important to have them involved in the process. And I also agree with Commissioner Washington's recommendation of merging the two.
Commissioner Boyd.
But I would argue, just to be the devil's advocate, that all of our department heads are public servants. I mean, the police and fire are no different. I mean, clearly they are because of the role they play as first responders, but at the end of the day, they are public servants, just like everybody else on the mayor's staff.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I think them being emergency responders or in charge of the emergency response departments is that reason. Like, our literal lives are in their hands and based on the decisions that they make. And so I think it's super, super important to have, more than just the mayor be involved in that decision.
Commissioner Washington and then Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, and I support what Commissioner Anderson is saying. I think these two positions are quite different. We cannot deny historical problems with police departments, not only in our city but nationwide, and I think it is incredibly important to, as we have suggested here, that boards and commissions be diverse, that they have an absolute say in these critical positions that are saving your life, defending you. I just think we need to be very, very cognizant of the fact that our public should have a say in who is filling these positions.
Commissioner Lopez and then Commissioner Boyd.
Yeah, I think the difference between the two is that not between the two chiefs, between the chiefs and other department heads. The chiefs are public safety, and the other folks are public service, which is certainly different there. So that's that would be my differential between department heads and these two chiefs.
Commissioner Boyd.
I guess, and again, not to play the devil, not to be too much of a devil's advocate, but I guess part of my skepticism on this process comes from the actual boards themselves. We've seen boards, other boards, which we think perhaps are not quite what they should be, or the right people aren't on them, or they're not, I think we've talked about it with the BWL in terms of that board and how active that board is. So I guess I can understand what people are saying, but I also would like to know who the heck is on those boards. Are they people that we trust? And I don't even know who's on the boards. So I just offer that as part of my concern.
Commissioner Bauer.
Well, and I think this has been a long-standing, really goal of our city with these two very important positions, police and fire, but I kind of think especially police, but to have some degree of appropriate citizen, I don't even want to, oversight involvement. So I think this is a good thing that we have, and it might make it a little more complicated from time to time, but I think it's important that we have citizen input and involvement. But I totally agree. I think as we've discussed all these issues, boards and commissions, that's going to be a very interesting discussion as we look at perhaps how we can make boards and commissions more effective overall.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes, following up on your comment, I was going to say that that is why we need to look at the appointment process. And obviously, the mayor suggests the council agrees or not, so there have to be a little bit more teeth in those statements. Also, more transparency, I think, would go a long way, so that individuals who were asked and are appointed know that they have a responsibility that they need to exert, working with the other commissioners. So I think if we, as we move along with the boards and commissions, that we put some of that language there for transparency purposes. And obviously a big problem is that how long can a commissioner serve? How many terms?
Okay.
And I think those are two things that I'm looking at.
Okay. All right. Back on this. The question I would have to our attorney is, in terms of the process, the hiring process itself, it's my understanding that when a vacancy happens, there's an RFP process, and that's implemented by the city. That process is a closed process. I mean, it's not public. The people that are there that are vying for the jobs, that is not public information at that point. Is that correct?
Yeah, there becomes a point where in the process, the starting pool isn't necessarily, it's a little more protected in terms of FOIA and things, but you'll get to a point where decisions are starting to get made. So if, you have your applications come in and HR screens them for compatibility to make sure that, like, yes, you met the requirements, this was in time, you filled out all the stuff, you don't have a felony, because that's where, you can't have a felony to be a police officer. All those sort of things. It'll get to a certain point where decisions are being made to advance the people forward, where it would be subject to FOIA and be open. And I don't know what opinions have been stated before, but likely based on my knowledge of the Open Meetings Act and FOIA, if this is getting to a decision where they're weeding out on merit, which you would have your boards doing, that would likely be something where they'd have to reveal who they were.
So in terms of the language, the current language under point 2, let's say with the fire chief, from candidates recommended by the Board of Fire Commissioners, at that point, that's public, wouldn't it be? I mean, that's a decision.
I think I'd have to know, practically speaking, what does recommended mean, but I think there's a lot of case law that would likely support that would be something that they'd have to make those reviews in an open meeting and kind of move them forward.
Okay, so the process then for the police chief under point 2, appointed by the mayor in consultation with the Board of Police Commissioners, is that process then is open?
Again, I think it really depends on the specifics of how that's done, because if you have one person kind of weeding it out and then presenting, well, here's who I recommend, what do you think? One person is not a board. So again, it really depends on the process of how it gets there. But at some point, I think whoever the mayor is presenting to that board in consultation, that's going to likely be in an open meeting. Open meetings would apply, FOIA would apply. Media would want to know, and that would get reported, things like that. That's pretty standard.
So just a general question for the colleagues up here. If the mayor is going to accept the candidates that are recommended by the board, whether it's the fire or the police board, and then we want to add confirmation by a majority of the members of the board, isn't that, why would they be recommending them in the first place if they wouldn't confirm them in the second? Commissioner Dowd.
I would say recommended for interview, and then they may have a difference of opinion once interviewing those people. So they might say, here's the recommended 5 people. They go through the process of interviewing, and through that, something comes out, and they may not agree that that's the best person any longer.
Well, the way I read that was the recommended, at that point, the interviews have taken place, the board has made the decision. These are the 3 that we want to send up. These are the recommendations that we're making.
I guess I don't know that process.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's redundant. Commissioner Washington.
The way I see it is the board recommends who should be interviewed, not they've already been interviewed.
How do you do that? I'm sorry. I
Okay,
didn't-
fire chief shall be appointed by the mayor from candidates recommended by the Board of Fire Commissioners. I'm thinking they recommend who to be interviewed, not that the interviews have already happened.
Oh, I don't think that's the way it happened. Yeah. Commissioner Powell.
This is, in recent years, is this how this really happens? Does the fire board actually come up with the list? Does anybody, or does I've always thought the mayor, probably in consultation, just like,
Well, the way I understood it, and maybe I was thinking about adding some language, is that it's done pursuant to the city's policies and procedures, the purchasing policies and procedures, which would require that the city goes out, will put up a notice, we've got a vacancy here, these are all the qualifications. They'll get 10, people, there will be a decision about where's the paper cut going to be, and then those people get recommended to the fire board itself. They then review those and then make recommendations that's the way I understood it in terms of it.
and we think that's the way it actually happens?
It used to be, I don't know if it's doing it
Yeah, I don't
today.
either. Okay.
Okay. Madam Vice Chair. Go ahead. Yeah, Commissioner Lopez.
Okay. As an example, I served in the Fire Commission for a little bit. And when the vacancy became available, the HR sends out the job announcements, et cetera. They respond to HR. There's a committee of the board that works with HR to interview the candidates.
Correct.
Then they agree on X number of candidates to present to the mayor as the best, or however you want to call it, the ones that floated in the process. So I believe then the mayor does interview them, again. But that's the process that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's by and large how it happened before. So those are the steps that happen.
Okay.
So then the mayor selects from the 3 or 4 that have been recommended.
Commissioner Cooey.
So being directly a part of that process, would it be redundant to bring whoever he suggests back to the board to have them vote if they've already, picked the top of the cream of the crop? So any one of those that he chose should have been qualified for that position. And whichever one he thinks is a suitable fit, why would we bring him back for a majority?
Well, I think it's just, to reaffirm the selection, because they've already interviewed them.
Yeah. I mean, is it necessary?
Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Dowd.
Yeah, you said it's a portion of the committee, right? So it's a hiring group of the full committee. So I guess there's so there's 3 people of the whole commission that are making that recommendation. So then the mayor selects it and brings it to the full commission and says, okay, affirm this now. So I think maybe that's partially why it's not the full group making that recommendation.
Thank you for bringing that up. Okay.
So,
I think it's worked in different ways, and it's an issue of availability of the commissioners to get this process going. If there's 13 commissioners or 9 commissioners, to have them all interview at the same time may be difficult. So the commission agrees that maybe the executive committee, okay? And then they bring it out. This is where, thank you for bringing it up, brings it to the board and explains the process to the board and gives them information as to who applied, who was interviewed, and what are the names being forwarded to the mayor. Maybe that's a little more complete process there.
well, it would seem to me, I mean, if you did that and then brought it back to the full board and they failed to search, what a waste of time. I mean, why wouldn't we have it where the subcommittee or the committee take it to the full
commission.
board, and the full board says, yeah, okay, we go with these 3, and then submit it to the mayor. And so when the mayor's done, everything's done. I mean, I don't know if it's ever failed or not when they take it to the mayor approves one and then sends it back for a vote if it's ever been voted down or not, but
I don't know
I'm
if
just talking
that's happened.
process.
I'm just giving you what I saw in my time in the commission.
Okay. So, Commissioner Anderson.
I just want to make a couple notes. One is the last time we hired a fire chief, interviews were done like with the public, and citizens were able to like ask questions, and it was live streamed in a very interesting format. And so that was with the final 3 candidates. So I was just looking at that online. But could we possibly have someone from each board come down and explain to us what they have been doing, so we can, I guess, make not necessarily a decision based on what they're doing, but just hear and understand it better and then make a decision from there? Yeah, because it just seems like there's a lot of like misunderstanding, and I don't want to make a decision based off of that.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, all right, is that the will? Yes. Okay, all right. At this point, then, we will move off that. We'll try to get some information, hopefully at our next meeting in a week. Commissioner?
And I would suggest if either of those commissions have proposed language to mirror that together or come together with that and they present that to us, that could be easier to just approve that way as well.
Okay.
Mr. President?
I'm sorry?
We're going to try to talk with one person or a group
Yeah,
from each
get a
board,
representative.
Fire and police?
Yeah, get a representative from each one. Commissioner Lopez?
Just one more observation. I think that right now, and I may be wrong, but I think the Police Commission, Morrison is an advisory group, rather than the Fire Commission, which is more of a whatchamacallit?
Hands-on,
I'm sorry?
hands-on, more hands-on.
Yeah, I think so. I think they advise anyway, but I think they're more involved in.
Yeah. I think under the charter, they're both the same. You know, advisory board with additional duties or something. I can't recall the exact language. Okay, we'll bring them in. Commissioner Washington?
Just really quickly, we do have a police advisory board, and then we have the police commissioners, and they are 2 distinct boards. I mean, frankly, I think we could do away with the police advisory board, but that's just my personal opinion. It was put in when they were just initiating community policing, and it was supposed to be a neighborhood kind of thing, and that has long passed. But when I was a fire commissioner, we were pretty hands-on. We had a definite say in the budget, and we knew exactly what was going on at each station, and I think a commission is different than an advisory board, and we have to remember that. We should not be reducing these to advisory boards. I think these are really incredibly important. So, just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move off this at this point and then bring back further information.
So the last item covered in this memo is the section on the city attorney. There's been a lot of talk about it, but at this point, I think we're going to need some guidance from the board about which way you want to go or what more information you need to make some determinations about some final language here. Part of the discussion was, I think in large part, you know, how the city attorney is selected, which again, as an officer, there's quite a lot of leeway in how the city attorney is selected. There was discussion about an election of a city attorney. If you want to do that, there's certainly pros and cons to that that the board would need to discuss, and that would require some revision of some language, particularly in Article 2. It would likely also mean that some of the current provisions for qualifications of the city attorney, which are stated in an ordinance, would likely not apply to an elected office because there's sort of fewer constraints you can put on an elected office. But to the extent you want to go that route, there will be a few sort of questions that we would need answered there. Alternatively, if you would like to have that remain as an appointed position, clarification or sort of confirm who is doing the appointing. Currently, it is the mayor with approval of the council. That was not always the case. Looking at the 1955 charter, it was actually the city attorney was a member of the cabinet and the mayor appointed the city attorney subject to approval of the council, and then it stated that the city attorney was directly responsible to the council, whereas the current charter says the mayor and the council. So again, there's a lot of decisions here in terms of appointment, removal, and additional language for any additional duties or clarification on duties of the city attorney that we would need guidance from the board. The other discussion too was whether to appoint or have a provision in the charter to allow for another attorney or the ability for the city council to hire an attorney for either kind of an all-the-time type of situation or for an as-needed basis. And so again, we would just need some guidance about where the board wants to go with that as you kind of decide these policy issues.
Okay, with that in mind, let's take on the issue of elected versus appointed. We've discussed this before. If we could just have a show of hands, just so we know where everybody's kind of at. Those that would support an elected, moving on to an elected city attorney, if you'd raise your hand. Okay, we've got one. Anyone who wants to support an appointed, leave as is, an appointed city attorney, raise your hand. Okay, that passes. I mean, that's not a formal. It's
Yeah.
just go ahead.
So I have a couple of thoughts around that if we're able to have a little discussion. So understanding that part of the problem has been the conflict between mayor and council, right? We've talked about that. Having had some conversations, I am curious of proposing it, or not curious. I'm going to propose an idea. Right now, the mayor has full authority to terminate the attorney. What I would like to see us consider is that city council with a supermajority could also have that same ability. Because if there really is a conflict and one person is clearly outweighing the attorney, right? So if you know the mayor's has your chopping block for you, you're less likely to side with council when your job is on the line in certain situations. And I believe this has been brought to our attention. This has happened. And so I'm curious because the mayor can appoint with the confirmation of council if both have equal authority to terminate this position, either the mayor or a supermajority of council. And I think that could help solve some of the concerns about favoring mayor over council. Just a thought.
Commissioner Washington?
That is something that I could actually support, and I could also support if council had their own full-time attorney that would deal with issues concerning the council with policy, with legislation, with ordinances. If they could have their own attorney, not a legislative aide, maybe one of those two, but their own attorney that could weigh in on issues that maybe there is a conflict. So I could probably be talked into either one of those.
Commissioner Boyd, Commissioner Cui, and then.
I have said that I support the appointment of the city attorney. I believe that, I'm not sure that I agree with Commissioner Dowd's recommendation. I don't think I've had enough time to study it. But I also believe that our city council, I know that there is an issue, and I think our city council should be able to hire legal counsel when it's appropriate, when they feel the need. And I think there should be a provision in the charter that outside counsel be paid, because I think there's been instances where the council hired legal counsel and they weren't paid because there was no money in the budget and the chief executive officer wouldn't
Commissioner
pay
Boyd,
them.
if I may interject, I was on council at that time. There was an unwillingness of the part of council to force that issue to get the attorney
Well, there you
paid.
go.
Okay.
Whatever. There should be a provision that the person that the individual or the whatever, that they should be paid. So, but I do support the appointment of a city attorney, and I'm not sure that I go along with what Commissioner Dowd has recommended.
Commissioner Cui, were you next?
Yeah, I was almost going to say the same thing. I don't know, and again, I've never been on city council. if we had one permanently, would it be enough work for them without them having to just have a retainer, so that whenever I did need one, it was making sure that it was covered for those situations that come up. But having that person as a permanent status where you could have two dueling attorneys conflicting all the time, I see that being an issue.
Madam Vice Chair.
I would agree to, obviously I support having the city attorney appointed, but I also believe that there should be language in this charter that states that city council has the ability to seek outside counsel. I don't think it should be permanent. I think it should be on a retainer. But also, if you do that, it needs to be stated clearly who's paying the outside city attorney, so there's no conflict.
Commissioner Washington.
I understand what you all are saying about being able to get an outside attorney, and I'm looking at it from a very different perspective because I was on council. There are times you want an outside attorney if you have to subpoena somebody, if it has something to do with the administrative staff, or that is very, very rare. And in fact, when I was on council for 8 years, it never happened. My point is not those types of situations. My point is, and maybe a part-time attorney. Who says it has to be full-time? But to really go through the legislation when there is a differing opinion on what that legislation means, and you have somebody opining whose job depends on one person, which is why I could perhaps support this. It's more of the legislative things, the ordinances things, not the bickering between the disagreements come up with legislation. And I don't think we should have to, the council should not have to get an outside attorney for things like that. When we had some issues with a previous city attorney, we considered getting an outside attorney. It's for issues like that, not for the everyday difference of opinion, where if an attorney opines in one way, it favors the administrative branch, where the legislative branch views it in a different way. It's those types of things, which is why I'm saying perhaps a part-time attorney, or, I mean, I wouldn't even keep one on retainer. We have an entire city attorney office. It's an entire law office. They should be able to figure something out where somebody could be assigned specifically to city council for a specific amount of time. There's a way to work it out. But I think we are talking about two different things. We're talking about the dramatic, and that rarely happens.
Other comments? Commissioner Lopez.
Just thinking about what Commissioner Washington was saying, the police commission has an assigned attorney to them. So if any issue comes up, he or she will advise the commission what the legal status is, or whether they can talk about it or not. So they have an assigned attorney. So I would imagine that the fire board has an assigned attorney as well. So to have an assigned attorney from the legal department, I think that would be doable, and council could bank on that. But then again, it needs a lot of discussion there. Now, I was going to say that on this examples, there are cities that do have the ability to hire an attorney, councilman to councils in various cities. So that would be another option for us, as has been mentioned before.
Other questions, comments? So, Kristen, I would just ask you if we totally confused you, and do you know the direction we want to go in?
Well, I will say I recall seeing language similar to what Commissioner Dowd had mentioned in another city. So essentially, the mayor could fire, but could essentially be vetoed by the council and vice versa. But to the extent, I mean, part of the difficulty here is because you have a strong mayor form of government. There are a lot of cities, I would say most cities actually have the council appoint their city attorney, but that's because they don't have a strong mayor. So that's kind of the uniqueness here, is that you can't necessarily always compare, it's not always apples to apples in that situation. So In terms of this discussion about whether to have separate counsel for the city attorneys, or for the city council, we did do a search of a variety of cities, including strong mayor cities within the state. We did not find any that actually had sort of a sitting attorney just for the council, kind of like on an all-the-time basis, but certainly a lot of them have the provision that a attorney could be hired for a particular issue or for a duration of time. There could be a situation where if you do actually have a true legal dispute between sort of the mayor and the city council, that you would have to hire an outside counsel to deal with part of the interest, because you'd have a conflict of interest for the city attorney's office. So it's not uncommon, as you mentioned, Commissioner Lopez, to have, and particularly in larger cities, with a fully staffed legal office, to have particular attorneys assigned to advise particular boards. It's not uncommon for it to actually be like the deputy or the city attorney or the deputy city attorney, the higher ups, to be the ones who advise the legislative body on the day in and day out. But if you have a situation where there is a true sort of conflict, the city attorney's office is not, it's too small to have a wall. So, I mean, essentially, your assistant city attorney still has to report to the city attorney. And so if you have an issue, you often put in expertise with certain boards, but if it's truly an issue of a conflict of what the opinion is, you really can't have assistant a city attorney providing truly conflict-free advice if there really isn't a conflict. So there may be situations where you may need the legislative body to hire and have their own counsel.
Okay, so with that, you're going to come back to us with...
I can come back with some proposed language for you guys, kind of a la Commissioner Dowd, for the idea of sort of this dual veto for you guys to look at and consider. And if there's some language, I think probably the Pontiac model has been kind of offered in terms of hiring counsel if that situation is necessary. I can develop some language as well about sort of having, I guess, more of a standing attorney for the council. That might take a little longer because I don't have anyone else I can copy and paste from and edit. That'll be whole new stuff for me, but we can come kind of give you that buffet and you can make your option and discuss further from those.
All right, does anyone have any questions about where this is going? Okay. Let's move on. Commissioner Boyd.
Mr. Chairman, can you tell us again, Kristen, exactly what you're going to come up with? You're going to come up with 3 recommendations. One will be for a city attorney that is can be fired only by the city council and the mayor?
It'd be a sort of a dual veto. So either city council could fire with the mayor ability to veto, or the mayor could fire with the city council with the ability to veto that.
Okay.
To this idea, if one of them's gunning for you, the other branch of government can say, nah, we're going to leave them in place. Does that make sense?
And then the second option you're going to give us would be for the council to have the ability to hire outside legal counsel when necessary.
Yes.
And then thirdly, you're going to give us an option for if we had an in-house a city attorney assigned to the council that the council hires.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So we're done with that review. We still have a number of things that have been left undone in Article 4. So if you have that article in front of you, if we go to 4-102, which is now the new 5, we've had discussion about this, I think, in our meeting in February, and I think there was a recommendation that was made to us, if I can get back to that.
And this is on page 29 of your packet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, there was in the memo that was sent to us from our attorney dated February 14th, there was a recommendation for changes of that specific paragraph. And I think the question that came up at that point is that folks were not aware of the report that is the annual reports that are currently presented by the city. I think the clerk sent us copies of the last couple. Did have an opportunity to read the very thorough reports. But we have to go back, take a look at that language, and I'm going to hold this up. Does anybody have their February 14th legal memo? Because that has the language that was proposed.
February 14th?
February 14th.
Oh, okay. I have it. Yeah,
Don't have
I
it.
go through here.
Emery, do you have access at all? Okay.
No, I have it here. I mean, I can find it.
You can have it yourself.
Huh? Here.
Commissioner Jeffries, while we're waiting
Yes.
for that report, can you give us a little idea about that February 14th legal memo and what we're looking for?
We were looking at the language 4-102 5, and there was some. It was basically updating, and there was another sentence added to it that the report shall also outline and provide analysis of the transparency efforts of the agency of the excuse me, executive branch. And there was discussion at that point. It talks about the annual report. That's what this is addressing. And there was discussion about no one had seen the report. They didn't know what was in it. So we had Chris send us copies of it, and so we had an opportunity to review it. That was done back in February. We just have not gotten back to it. So trying to go back through and just kind of clean up some of these areas in this article, in Article 4, to finish off that review. The other issue would be in 4-301, there was some other language that came up that we had some discussion about, but I don't want to get lost in that, if, get too far ahead of us at this point.
Organization of departments.
Yeah.
They're printing.
Oh, okay.
They gave you permission, Chris?
What?
They gave you permission to use the printer?
Wait, wait. Hey, folks, why don't we just stand at recess for about 5 minutes, and then you can get up, move around.
here they are already. I think the proclamation was public first time.
Chris, is 10 for you or for Kristen?
Do you need it? I have it up on my
Do
screen.
you need a
so I don't-
physical? Okay.
Well, Brian has one already too. Brian already has
Okay,
his.
so then you can. Oh,
Oh, right.
cool. I get one. Hooray.
I don't understand the problem. I don't relate.
While she's still learning how to work through it. Well, you know what, I'm hoping we bring to Congress, grow some cojones. Retire. But
That's weird. I still have 59 minutes. Okay, good. We have 59 minutes to wrap it up on my computer wall. I have 59 minutes left, it says.
well, you know what, two sides of it, but you know, I have, I keep in touch with a lot of military friends. Are very hyped to go around to it. And now it's up where
Here's your for council.
I almost so I covered absolutely, but I would just love that one because now we have it. And actually, so again, I ran into someone and he was having a good week. 2 weeks later, they came up here and said, hey, I ran someone, you know. Yeah, I don't. With all the experience. Yeah, I don't think you know. So, okay, so I think all the other ones still need a chapter vote.
Well, do you know if we,
Yes, because like 301 organizational departments, like that's the one where you start the list. And then 2 is finance, we have the whole like, is finance responsible, is finance coordinating, and we have a big decision on that. So that would just vote on. 3 is fire, so we vote. 4 is.
See, it's your fault. Even George, can you say that? Even George Washington asked me for
I think we read through just to make the decisions because it was like, yeah, like for our city attorney, like we didn't want to change anything, but
Yeah.
we're sure that we're elected, so we didn't vote on chapter as a whole. Then this one we voted on, this one we kind of went through, but didn't. Yeah,
I've been trying to get my. And I don't get along, I don't know who's from Lansing, but they had an open house for the CSO project.
My daughter's spouse lived here. Called me like. But they won't stay. They're grown. They want to have their roots here.
I'd like to call the commission back to order, please. So everybody has a copy of the February 14th memo. The reference is on the first page, 4-102 point, now 5. It was currently 4, but we had amended that. And as you can see on there, there are the changes that were proposed. Again, this was in reference to the annual report. We've now been sent that report. We've had an opportunity to look at it. So is there anyone who wants to make a motion to approve those? Okay. Okay. And is there support? Okay. It's been moved and supported, and I would, I guess, want to note that this statement by Commissioner Dowd, when we looked at this, that he pointed out correctly that this is the State of the City report, not to be confused with the State of the City address that the mayor makes. So with that, is there any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Then I think if you go to the last page, page 5 of the report, this deals with Finance Department, which is 4-302.2. We had a discussion at that point about the Department of Finance, and the current language states that the Department of Finance shall be in charge of the divisions of accounting, assessment, budget management, income tax, and treasury. The language, because of the chart, the city chart that we saw, the organizational chart, who reports to who, ultimately it's the mayor. The proposed amendment is the Department of Finance shall coordinate with the divisions of accounting, assessments, budget management, income tax, and treasury. I think that reflects more accurately what really happens or what should be happening. So is there, it's been moved
Second.
and it's been seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. So that'll wrap that up. Yes, we did 4.102.9 was passed, as was .10. We did 11 tonight. So all of those have been taken care of, and all the other changes in here have been made. Okay. All right. I did have some question as to if we had gone through. So for getting back to what we've got in front of us, right now we have questions about the fire department. We have questions regarding the police department. Well, actually, those would be, yeah. Under the, just a second here, let me. Under the fire department itself, 4-303. We did not actually pass that entire section because we were waiting to find out what was going to happen with the fire board. Same thing with the police board, police commission, and so for 4-303 and 307, fire and police respectively, do people feel comfortable in going through this now, even though we have not resolved the issue of the fire commission and police commission issues? You want to wait and do it all at once? Okay, Commissioner Dowd.
I would suggest it's worth going through now in case there were any other questions that come up out of this that we would get clarification from while we're going to them. Yes, go through it and make sure that we're clear on everything that we need to.
Well, so for example, 4-301.1, the fire chief shall be the administrative head of the fire department, shall be responsible to the mayor for the provision of its fire protection services, fire prevention services, and such other services may be assigned to it by the city. All services shall be rendered to the city in a manner consistent with best standards and practices. Anybody have any concerns about that? Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there support?
Support.
Any questions, comments? Commissioner Boyd? Any concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 2. This is, okay.
That's what we have a question.
So, point 2, okay. Point 3 will pass. Point 4 talks about the oath of office. Does anybody have any concerns about that? All those, is there a motion? It's been moved.
Second.
Supported. All those in favor, say aye. That one passes. So we'll be coming back to point 2 and 3. If we could jump forward to 4 dash, I'm sorry? Yes, point 5 is done. If we'll go to the police board, or police department, 4-307, we'll probably have the same issues as we did with the fire department. Point 1, police chief shall be the administrative head of the police department. Is there anyone who has a motion on that?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 2 and point 3 will come back to. And then point 4 talks about the oath of office, similar to the fire department. Is there a motion? It's been moved
Second.
and supported. Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. And then point 5 talks about immunity, privileges, and powers that the police officers have. We did make one amendment. We may have passed this before, where we took out, I think it was by law, I think it was by the law, or I can't recall exactly what that. Yeah, we did do that. But does anybody have any questions or comments regarding that phrase, that section? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is it supported? Moved and supported. Any questions, comments?
Yes.
Yes. Madam Vice
I
Chair.
would like, as discussed earlier on from public comment, that there's some type of statement in the charter stating that the police chief must be certified as far as either MCOs or by their state that they represent. Because normally the police department, if it's internal, a couple of our candidates have been internal, they're already certified. But if you have somebody from the outside of the state coming in, then they would have to be certified from their state as well.
Would that be appropriate in point 1 to add that language? And
Yeah, I think you could either add something as an additional sentence after, the current sentence in point 1, or you could put, it probably makes the most sense just to add it to the end of point 1, or you could just add a new provision within here, but it would probably need to go as like a new point 2. Either of those, I think.
can you bring language back to us?
Yeah, and just so that I'm clear, did you want it to be that they were already sort of certified or licensed in their originating state, or that they shall be, become licensed under MCOs within such amount of time?
No, in the original state.
In their original state? Okay.
Prior to their appointment.
Okay.
What?
So I think what you're asking is if we should.
Well, if they're coming from another state, they would be licensed in that state, and then, of course, they would need to get licensed here as well, if it's,
So you want them certified in both
yes.
states or licensed?
If they're coming out of a different state.
Right.
So I don't know if that needs, yeah.
Okay.
I will develop language
Yeah.
to that extent. I don't know that all states require certification, but we can draft it to.
Okay.
Well, I think the point is, though, when they're
Yeah.
applying here, that they've gone through and have been certified with them.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll bring that back then. Okay. So back on the motion on point 5, is there, or pardon me. Missed that one. On point 5, is there any other, Commissioner Bauer?
Okay, so we're on point 5, police officers shall have an exercise.
Yes.
And my only question would be, since the charter is old, is this the, and I'm not in law enforcement, so I don't know, but is this the language of the day? And I don't know that. I have a nephew who's a police officer, and I know that.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the .5?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering from, again, we don't have anyone here who's in, that kind of position. I was just hoping that, we could go ahead and approve it and come back, maybe run it by somebody in the current police department. I'm just wondering if the wording and everything is, proper magistrate or court. Is all that language current language of the day?
I can double check. It's certainly common to have in city charters provisions that the police officers have, privileges and powers of peace officers or
yeah.
conservators of the peace, things like that.
Yeah.
But I can double check on everything else. I don't see, looking at this, nothing struck me as being immediately,
Yeah, that would be my only.
but yeah, I'll double check and I'll let you know.
I would ask that you take a look at the last sentence about the violations of city ordinances. I understand, the power to make arrests and stuff, but a lot of that has changed, and they also enforce state statutes now.
Well, and I can tell you that mainly I think the purpose of that is that the officers could make, warrantless arrests in their presence. If violation of a city ordinance is committed in their presence, they could make an arrest.
Correct.
I think typically what that language is getting at, but yeah, I can, we'll double check that too.
All right. Commissioner Bauer, did you have any other comments? No? Okay. All right, we'll hold off on that as well then, at this point. Okay. I think also on 4-308 under Public Service Department, we had discussions, and I couldn't remember what we ended up doing on point 3 about the Public Service Director and the city engineer shall be registered professional engineers of the state of Michigan. Commissioner Anderson.
I believe we were going to ask Andy Kilpatrick to come and explain to us, like, his role versus a city engineer.
Yeah, he was supposed to be here tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we discussed that already.
We did discuss it. We had quite a bit of discussion. I don't think we took any action on it. Because I think we had language about eliminating it for the public service director and making it a requirement only for
The city engineer.
Yeah. So,
And we didn't pass that?
no, it was,
I'd like to make a motion.
I thought we did as
I'd like
well.
to make a motion that be approved.
I
I don't
went back
understand
through
why
the
we didn't do
minutes.
that. Go ahead. Esmond.
We
Did I miss
didn't
something?
do it because I had further questions and concerns about it, and that's why we asked if Andy Kilpatrick could
okay.
come here and talk to us
Apologize.
about it. Yeah.
It was Commissioner Anderson's fault. So. Okay, good. All right, so we'll come back to that as well. And I suspect since our conversation tonight, in terms of sustainability, there may be something here we might want to include in that as well. We'll give that some thought then. Okay, all right. Just go back and check to make sure we've got everything. Finance. So in terms of 4-304, Office of City Attorney, we're waiting for a number of things to be brought back to us. There are some issues within there in terms of what the responsibilities are. Do you want to wait for when we go over everything, or take that up tonight? Commissioner Washington.
I'm glad you actually came back to that, because I had a question in the point when the city attorney may be appointed by the mayor. Why does that not say shall? Who else is going to appoint him?
The recommendation was to make it shall.
Okay.
But you want to come back to these changes when we get all of the stuff back? Yes. Okay. All right, we'll move off that. Let me go through here. We approved 4-305 Parks and Rec. 4-306 Economic Development Planning Department. We did make changes there. I just had a question under point 2. It says any agency with the knowledge of the Director of Economic Development and Planning may undertake a study of any development matter within the scope of its duties. Does that mean that the director knows about this, and is there a prior approval? Is that what's implicated here, or what happens on that? Go ahead.
I mean, just reading the plain language here, it looks like it's with knowledge, not necessarily approval. So, and I don't know, I mean, agency to me within this charter kind of means specifically, I think, the Board of Water and Light, because I think that's the only true agency that you have in here. Whereas the other entities are more like departments. But I think that's what's meant, is that the director knows about it.
Okay.
Not necessarily
Does it need further
approved.
clarification, or you're comfortable enough with it?
That's for you all to decide.
Well, you're the attorney. Come on. All right. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Any concerns? All right. And then we've gone through the heads under 4-401, heads of departments, heads of agencies. Does anybody have any concerns or questions with regards to any of the language within those provisions? We did a little bit of some of that tonight already. Is everybody good with that? Okay, all right. We have not finished up on 4-501, city clerks stuff. And I guess I would ask the city clerk, we talked a little bit about maybe expanding some of the roles with city council. Is there anything?
I don't know that there's any necessity for that. So.
Okay, all right. Let's go through this just to make sure that we've covered everything. Under 4-501.1, is there a motion to approve that language?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Point 2,
So moved.
Commissioner Washington.
I have a question about point 2. I really don't see any reason why the clerk shall attend all meetings of the city council. I think the city council could take their own minutes of their own meeting, and then, because it is required that the clerk keep the minutes, but city council has staff to do that, and they're here anyway. So unless there is a, something in state law or the Home Rule Act, I don't see why the city council staff doesn't take their own minutes and file them with the clerk.
Madam Vice Chair.
Do they actually have staff, though? That was the question, to do that. But why would you take that duty away from the city clerk's office, especially when they're in charge of those meetings and attendance?
They don't take the minutes of the,
Yes, they do.
of the mayors? Do you take the minutes of the mayor's cabinet meetings?
No, I take the minutes of the council meeting.
I know.
Yes.
My point is, council has staff that can do that. So why don't they take their own minutes? And I actually talked to council people and asked this, and they are more than willing to take their own minutes. My point is, it's not necessary that the clerk come in too when they have staff that is already here that is qualified and capable of taking the minutes. And if you don't do it for the mayors, why would you do it for council?
Yeah,
Commissioner Bauer.
Okay, if I understood correctly, you would suggest that city council staff take the minutes, but isn't there something in state statute or that would require the clerk, as part of their duties, to the official record keeper for the governmental unit?
There's a difference between being the record keeper and the record taker, and that I would defer to our city attorney, and that's what I said, unless there's something in state statute or the Home Rule Act that states that a city clerk must take the minutes of a city council meeting, which I would be surprised if there is that.
Yeah.
But I would just think council could take care of their own minutes. And I know we've always done it this way, but I don't think it's probably necessary to bring in the clerk's office.
Madam Vice Chair.
I would like to hear the opinion of the city clerk.
I take my role as clerk of council very seriously.
Absolutely.
I take my role as preparing the city council agenda very seriously, participating in the running of the council meetings very seriously. And that includes the preparation of the council proceedings.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boyd.
Well, I was one of the few people on this commission that suggested that the mayor didn't need to attend the council meetings because the mayor doesn't get a vote at the council meetings. He's there to answer questions. So if we're going to require the mayor to be there, why wouldn't we require the clerk to be there? And I've heard repeatedly that the council people doesn't have enough staff. They don't have staff to do this. They don't have staff to do that. They need more people. That may be true, but why would we put one more burden on them when the clerk is doing a fine job? So I would support that the clerk continue to take the minutes from the city council. And I also would say that if there's anything we've learned, anything that I've learned in this commission proceeding, it's that the council really has a lot of answering to do. So I would recommend that the clerk continue doing his job.
Commissioner Kui.
I would concur with that also, just from the fact, and again, I'm not saying anything derogatory to council staff, but I think when you're taking minutes, sometime, depending on what side of the issue you're on, some of the things that you might take in the minutes would be your own stance on that instead of being objective. I think the city clerk, again, I'm not just, I hear what you're saying, not disavowing anyone, what they say in their minutes, but I think having the city clerk be on neither side, they're very objective and straight to the point, and I would keep it as is.
Madam Vice Chair.
I think it creates a checks and balance. I think having the city clerk there, he has that historical knowledge, just like he serves on this commission because of historical knowledge, but it's stated in the Home Rules Act that he is supposed to be here. So I would not support removing him or her from that position.
Other comments? Commissioner Washington.
And I will respectfully disagree. The council staff already takes the minutes for the committee of the whole, and there are no biases when those minutes are taken. They are already here. They do a fine job. My thing is, why wouldn't you look at the efficiencies of not bringing in an entire different department in? Record keeper is not minute taker. And with all due respect, as far as historical knowledge, the clerk is not part of the city council and should be there only to take the minutes.
Other questions, comments? You know, I just want to say, having served on council for 12 years and working with the clerk's office and watching that process, and then also interacting with council staff, and we used to have more staff in the past than we do, or that exists today. You know, I just, hearing everything, what the needs are in terms of additional staff for, you know, council itself and the internal auditor position, I don't think this is the right way to go. I think my experience has shown with the clerk's office, particularly the work, this just isn't sitting down and taking minutes, what the clerk does. I mean, it's orchestrating everything that's going on. And I think with what the experience that clerk's office has, it's a well-oiled machine. I think they're very competent at what they're doing. I think it does offer a check and balance on things. I think it keeps it clean. I want to be supporting leaving it as is. So, anyway, Commissioner Washington.
Well, since there is no support, I'm not even going to make the motion, but I will stand on what I say. I will stand that the council is absolutely capable of putting the agenda together. They know what's going to go on the agenda. They submit the things to the city clerk to put on the agenda. And if they need more staff, then they need more staff. I don't think we're talking about staffing units here. We're talking about, and this is nothing on Chris. I think Chris does an amazing job, but this isn't for today. This is for the efficiencies of how the city runs. And we all know that city council doesn't have enough staff, but I don't think we should preclude them from doing their job because they don't have staff.
Is there a motion? For point 2? As is? Yep. Is there support?
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Aye. Passes. Point 3. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. Point 4. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 5. It's been moved.
Support.
It's support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 6.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 7.
So moved.
Support.
Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 8.
So moved.
Okay. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. And point 9.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Passes. Yes, Commissioner Bob.
Just one question for the clerk. So, these are the 9 things, but based on, again, the charter being old, are there other things that you think should be added, or does this cover all the essential duties?
One of the big parts of my job is business licensing, particularly since the statewide marijuana licensing. But those are all in ordinances, so I don't know that it's necessary to have them here.
Why don't you give that some thought, if we need to add some more, just to make sure we're up to
I
speed on
appreciate that.
Good question. Okay, 4-502, Chief Deputy Clerk, City Clerk. Is there any questions? It's been moved. Is there support? Any questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. So I think that takes care of Chapter 4, but for what we pointed out, so bringing that back. Under, is it new business, or is it still old business? I think it's under old business. We have Article 5. I got the sense from some folks that this would be a good time to stop, but having said that, I think one of the early issues that we should tackle here is that, we've gone to a 7-member council and 5-2 split, 5 at large, or 5 wards, 2 at large. We might want to, we can certainly reduce the number of commission and board members to 7. We could leave it at 8. It would be a 3-5 split at that point. We need to talk about that. Maybe we should work that out before we really dig into these other boards and commissions and making changes. What are people's thoughts on that? Madam Vice Chair.
Commissioner Chair, are the terms right now 4-year terms?
Yeah.
I thought so. Not 3-year terms, they're 4-year terms. Okay, thank you. And are there limits on those terms? There are not. Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair.
I would support leaving the number of board members the same as 8. And I would also support proposing that we have term limits as far as they are allowed to serve 2 consecutive terms of 4 years.
Let's split those issues.
Okay.
Let's first deal with the number of board members. So, Commissioner Washington.
I believe the board should mirror the council, and there should be 1 for each ward and 2 for the at-large on these boards and commissions. If we go to 8, we are doing exactly what we said we didn't want to do with the council, was to be able to have a 4-4 split when there are votes being taken. I've been on several boards where we have voted on things. And I just think it should mirror council, or the city wards and at-large like we do currently.
Other comments? My comment would be that, one of the things that we heard loud and clear in terms of the campaign, and one thing that, I've looked at when I was on council is this is how we involve our citizens into the operations of the city. And, looking at this has got to come up for a vote. If I'm a citizen looking at this and now you're reducing citizen participation, I might not like that, and I might want to vote against that. And, I just think for that purpose, I think that's an overriding issue for me that would, I understand the concern about tie votes and stuff like that. I served on boards and commissions, and it didn't stop us from doing our work. And I think it's just really, really important that we keep the level of involvement of our citizens as high as we can. And I think it certainly would make things a little easier in terms of how we do our work on this board. Commissioner Anderson.
I think you make a great point, and I know it probably, you guys don't want to keep having this conversation, but city council is also community engagement. And we're reducing it there, which I don't think that we should be, and I think I've made that very clear. And I'm happy to revisit that conversation if you guys want to at any time. I would still, we're going to circle back at some point. But I think it's the same thing. City council are citizens just like the people on our boards and commissions. And so if we're going to reduce it in one area, it doesn't seem like that matters a lot, honestly.
So are you recommending that, are you saying that you'd rather that the boards and commissions be 7?
I think that they should mirror each other, like with council, but I don't think that council should be 7. So I think that it makes it hard for me to say that part out loud.
Commissioner Washington.
I am in agreement with Commissioner Anderson. I think we should probably put 9 people on boards and commissions, but I also think we should have 9 council people, whether that be 7, 2, or 9. I think reducing council was a really bad decision. And but I do think boards and commissions should mirror council, because you're supposed to have a representative on those boards from each ward, and then a representative for the 2 at-large or 4 at-large, whatever it is.
Madam Vice Chair.
Commissioner Washington, I think you're contradicting yourself, because you're saying that they should mirror each other, but if you're saying that there should be 9 board members, then basically you're saying there should be 9 wards. Yeah, I get that, but we're not there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions? Does anybody have any motions? Well, number of board members. Or do you want to think about it?
Board members, like, should it stay the same or should it be decreased? Or should it mirror?
Well, I guess no one wants to make the motion.
I can make a motion. I move that we keep the board members the same, 8,
Is that 5-3?
5-3.
Okay. Is there support for that?
Can you repeat the motion, please?
I move that we maintain the current board membership but it would be a 5-3. So it's 8. It remains 8. So you would have a representative from each ward, and then you would have 3 at-large members.
Is there support?
No, I have a question.
Pardon me?
I have a question.
Sure.
So looking through this language in here, there actually is nothing in the charter that states that it has to be any sort of a split at all. Like, there's nothing that says it has to be board, one from each board. It doesn't have to be anything.
He has information. You sent out information about how the board should be set up.
The current charter says that there's one from each ward and 4 at large. There's nothing in state law requiring that any boards and commissions be appointed by ward. I mean, you go to however many you want, all appointed at large. You go to 2 per ward. I mean,
It's on page 44.
Okay. It's on the record, you cannot do that. All right. Hearing no support, why don't we think about this? Oh, I'm sorry, I did not hear that. My bad. Okay, we have a motion. It's been moved and supported. Any other comments on the motion? Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
okay. Keeping 8 members with 5 ward members and 3 at large.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd,
I'm not ready to vote.
you're passing for the moment?
Pass. Thank you.
Commissioner Dowd. Commissioner Jeffries.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yep.
Commissioner Cooey.
Yes.
Commissioner Washington.
No.
Commissioner Adam Simon.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
No.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd.
She abstains.
I'm going to pass. I don't know how I feel about it. I can't vote.
She's abstaining.
Abstain is a yes vote.
We have 5 yeas, 3 nays.
Okay, it does pass.
Pass.
And so as moving forward, can we make the appropriate changes then, Kristen, in terms of if you can bring those back? Okay, so with that, I think we'll just wrap it up for tonight. And again, we have our next meeting a week from tonight, Tuesday nights. Fun. Sure. Commissioner Cooey.
For March 21st, we have everything as written?
Yes. And there'll be additional stuff now that will be coming forward, additional amendments. Okay. Yeah, I would suspect. Okay, with that, we're to public comment.
Okay, we have Randy Dykeis.
Standing. Okay, hi. Dyke 418 North Sycamore. So I was really heartened by the discussion about the sustainability department. I think you guys took it seriously. You'd obviously put some thought into it. You asked really good questions. I think you got to the heart of the matter. I think that the division or an office, as Lori talked about, is a perfectly workable solution. It doesn't need to be a department. I'd be really grateful if you could find a way to work that into the charter. Sticking into the public services somewhere in 4-308, that there is a division of sustainability or some such language in there would be really great. The other thing I would ask, as you get into Article 5 further, is that you seriously consider adding a sustainability board. We've got, not every board has a department now in the charter. You got an ethics board, you got the planning board, and having a sustainability board then elevates the visibility further. You get residents who are serving on that board, who are taking that responsibility seriously and bringing those issues forward. I think Commissioner Washington's comments and questions about the Sustainability Action Plan perfectly illustrated the lack of visibility currently held by the Sustainability Office and demonstrate in spades why that needs to change and why we need greater visibility and greater resources put into sustainability and climate action in the city. And saying that in the city, it's not without merit that we act within the city alone. Yes, would it be better if we worked regionally? Absolutely. But if we got the Board of Water and Light, for example, to move to 100% renewables and stop using fossil fuels, that would be a great thing for the entire region. That's something that only can happen in the city of Lansing because only the city of Lansing owns that asset. So to say that because we don't have a regional organization, we can't move forward, I think is not exactly accurate. And I'll leave it at that. So thanks for the discussion. Hope you find a way to put the division into the charter. Thank you. And add the Sustainability Board. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for public comment. Commissioner remarks, Commissioner Boyd.
Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, I'm going back to something that was just said about a sustainability board. Didn't you mention in your comments when we were talking with Lori from the Sustainability Office that there was a sustainability board and they did not recommend that there be a department? What is that board?
That is a board that was created by the mayor, and it's the, I can't remember what it's called, the Sustainability Commission. Randy?
The Mayor's Advisory Commission on Sustainability, and it's appointed by the mayor, starts with the mayor, and it can be signed by the mayor. That's why it's important that we get some permanency. And I won't take a lot of time, but that there's some nuance to that discussion that Commissioner Jeffries brought up. But the short answer is that we did have this discussion on the Sustainability Commission. Stop the discussion pending what happened here with the Charter Commission.
Thank you.
So if you guys decide that you're not going to put it in the charter, it will come back up at the mayor's Sustainability Commission, whether we're going to move forward with doing something on a more permanent basis.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none. We're out of here.
I wanted a comment.
I didn't understand because I knew you had mentioned that there was a board and I was like, what?
2 years, but it dipped below that level this month. While survey respondents still feel good about the current job market, their assessment of current business conditions and their outlook for the future worsened. The confidence index is compiled by the Conference Board, a nonprofit think tank. People who answered the survey say inflation